You're listening to In Kap We Trust for the Always Next Year Podcast Studio Network. You can find the team on our Twitter at ANYPodcast or on our website, www.alwaysnextyearpodcast.com. And now, to bring us in, the Jackdaws.
A fighting man I used to be, revered and feared through Killarney. Now I'm back to hitching with the wind. But if Mickey Flynn should ever find me, I'll throw me caution all behind me and square off on that son of a bitch again. He cracked open a river too, he beat me Sunday through and through, and such over my unconscious frame. I won me healthy sheriff fights, well lucky son still have me life since Mickey Flynn beat me dumb and lame.
No. Welcome to another episode of In Kap We Trust here at the Always Next Year Podcast. I'm your host, Shane, joined as always by Rob. Rob, we're getting a little bit of tease going on here. Another September tease. How you doing?
I'm doing... I'm always going to be doing well as long as the Eagles are winning. I'm doing well because the Phillies won last night. And like you said, we're getting a little bit of a tease. The baseball gods are teasing us with the teams ahead of us losing and their star players getting hurt. And ultimately, it's going to lead us to a letdown in the end.
Yes, I agree. I'm still not emotionally invested to the point where I believe that they are going to win and going to sneak into the postseason. But we can't not talk about it, right? So you mentioned it already. Obviously, Javi Baez goes out with a thumb injury for Chicago. He's going to miss the remainder of September. Really tough news last night on a ball that I don't know that I've ever seen this happen, but Christian Yelichs fouls a ball off his front leg, off his kneecap, and actually shatters his kneecap. I've seen people like break their foot. Obviously, Cesar Hernandez did that last year, fouling a ball off his foot there. Like that's okay, but like to get that far out in front and to hit that spot of your knee, man, that's tough. And obviously, we are a game behind Milwaukee for the team to be first eliminated from playoff contention. But right now, we are 2 games out of the second wildcard spot. We're actually only 4.5 games behind Washington for the wildcard leading spot. So to break this down for you, we have the Washington Nationals in the first wildcard position for the home advantage there at 2.5 games in favor. They have the Cubs are currently holding that second wildcard spot. Again, Javi Baez is out. Christian Yelich breaks his leg or shatters his kneecap, whatever it is. They are 1 game out of the second spot. We are 2 games out of the second spot. Arizona, one of the hottest teams in baseball over the last 40-ish days, are 2.5 games out. The New York Mets, who are always going to linger, are 3 games out. Everything beyond that is pretty much out of contention at this point. But that is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 teams right now who are going to be playing very meaningful baseball over the last 3.5 weeks of the season. Of all of those teams right there, is there anyone that may surprise you that could sneak into the postseason? You can include the Phillies in that because we don't particularly think they're going to make it.
I think that if there's going to be a surprise there, it's going to be... I'm going to say it's going to be Arizona. They played some really good ball over the past couple months. They have become the fade over the past... I think they've lost their last 2 games or something like that. Maybe they're falling back to earth a little bit. They've got some really, really talented players there. Ketel Marte has flown under the radar all season. He's had an excellent season. Some would even say an MVP caliber season if it wasn't for Yelichs and Cody Bellinger. He's been great for them the entire season. They've had a number of other guys who have come through for them in big moments. And the crazy part is they've made the run after they traded Zach Greinke.
Yep.
Which is nuts because he was the main cog of their pitching staff, obviously, and they lost him. They've been great ever since then. So if there was one team that surprised me to get in, it would be Arizona.
Yeah, I think that I still think there's a very real chance that they can. Obviously they're a team that, not unlike the Philadelphia Phillies, they're going to have to play near perfect baseball for 3 weeks. They're going to have a winning percentage up in that 700s for the final 3.5 weeks over there. But I would trust them to do it before I trust the Philadelphia Phillies. But
I would have said the Mets, but if I were a Mets fan, I just would not trust Edwin Diaz.
You can't right now, which is crazy to me. Again, Edwin Diaz, I mean, thank God they were asking us for Sixto, and that was enough for Clintack and the Phillies to say, I'm sorry, I'm not trading Sixto Sanchez for a reliever. Then we wouldn't have JT Realmuto, the best catcher and one of the best and most valuable players in baseball.
We'd be stuck with the worst closer in baseball.
He's not the worst closer, but he's not great.
He's pretty damn close to being the worst closer.
Do you think he rebounds next year? Because I totally do.
I don't think he does. I just don't think he's that good.
Really?
I just don't have any faith in him.
Man, I don't know.
And the Mets have a tendency to ruin the arms that they do have anyway.
The Mets have their entire organization, to me, is just one mind fuck all the time. The amount of talent that has come through there that has just broken down physically or mentally can't handle things. You see it with Matt Harvey. He never really regained anything. I just think failing in that city is different. It's kind of like what failing in Philadelphia is as well. The Mets right now, I think, are the team that I would not believe in, and they are the team right now that is furthest out of the teams that are still technically involved in this race. But the Phillies, they're doing the thing, man. They're sitting there, and I feel like the Philadelphia Phillies are the guy from that. I think it's a Geico commercial or whatever the hell it is. The old man with the fishing rod, and I think it's State Farm. I think it's State Farm.
Yeah, it might be State Farm.
I think it's State Farm. You almost got it. You almost had it. I feel like that, and then we're the shoppers in there just looking to snag a dollar that's hanging off a fishing line. This team has done it all year long. They have not had any consistent stretch where all areas are working perfect, are working even respectably. We haven't had a game where the offense was great, the starting pitching was great, the bullpen was great, coaching was great. We haven't had that for any type of stretch, so it's hard for us. It's hard for us here over at In Kap We Trust to sit here and fully believe in these things. But so we've talked about it a little bit before show, Rob and I. It seems weird to do it this way since we are technically in a race, but we are in a race that, oddly enough, I don't know that people care about. People sit here and they've just been toyed with so much that they just are emotionally out of it. So we are going to actually keep these episodes a little bit shorter until the end of this season. And if we happen to be playing incredibly, incredibly meaningful baseball where every pitch counts in that last series or two of the game, we will certainly put together more shows and more lengthy shows for you. But we're going to give a couple quick thoughts here on the Philadelphia Phillies as of late, and then ask each other a few questions about how this season has kind of gone. So first and foremost, I think for a lot of people, and this is something that people are going to be, I think, most curious about as this season comes to its conclusion. I think so long as the Philadelphia Phillies are hanging around this race, that the Gabe conversation is going to be, well, we assume he's coming back. So let's just assume now that the Phillies, whether they make the postseason by some stretch or if they are just out of it, two games out, something like that. What do you think is done with Gabe Kapler and his staff next year?
Ultimately, Kapler, I believe, will be back. I think that regardless of how this season ends, I have a feeling that the front office is going to give him at least that third season to try to prove himself as a manager. I think they realize that a lot of things have happened this season that have kind of been out of his control, such as the injuries. McCutchen going down, the bullpen guys going down. They dealt with a lot of injuries, so I think that they'll kind of make an exception for him because of that, and they'll bring him back next season. Maybe if they're not performing well, the midway point of next season or something like that, then he'll be on his way out. But to start the next season, I think that Gabe will be back. On the other hand, Chris Young, I think he's done. I think he
should be.
A one-and-done experiment with him. He's done a terrible job with this pitching staff.
For sure. I know we talked about this and we teased it a little bit several weeks back, but we had Andrew Santangelo and AMY Pete, a person who's we don't even know his who he really is or who she really is. AMY Pete, bit of an anonymity thing over there going on, but we enjoy the work. They wrote opposing viewpoints on the Kapler situation and whether or not he should open next season as the manager of the Philadelphia Phillies or not. AMY Pete is back from his long vacation. And he actually has several articles coming out today. We are recording this on, what is this, Wednesday? Wednesday the 11th, 12th, 11th.
It feels
Wednesday,
like a Wednesday.
11th. Oh my God.
It's a Wednesday.
September 11th. Wow. Didn't even dawn on me. So they wrote opposing pieces there on Gabe Kapler and what his tenure may be and will he stay in that seat next year. And we will eventually have both of those writers on to discuss their piece. I have to ask AMY Pete if we're going to use a phaser. Like if we're going to sit here and he's going to talk into like just one of those, just, like, I don't know if we can, how much of him or her we're allowed to know. But yeah, AMY Pete and Andrew Santangelo, we're excited to have that one out there.
Yeah, we'll get him. Eventually, we'll get him on video, and we'll have that blacked out face, like they do in the the documentaries about the mafia and biker gangs and stuff like that.
Yeah, for sure. The ANYP Witness Protection Program. All right. So the Gabe Kapler thing is something we're gonna, obviously we're gonna talk a lot about that as the season concludes and then throughout the off season, unless of course. The Phillies do what the 76ers did, and they make a very, very quick decision on re-upping that contract as the Sixers did with Brett Brown. Maybe the Phillies and the organization as a whole are going to do something similar and not let that thought linger, and they'll give Kapler another year or two on an extension there, just to not have a lame duck fan base at this point. We have no idea what the hell's going to go on. But we're going to jump into some questions here. So these are questions that fans submitted to both me and Rob. So they have been submitted on our personals. So Rob is going to ask me some of the questions that his followers submitted to him, and then I will ask Rob some of the questions that my followers submitted to me. So let's start with Rob, and Rob, take it away. You'll just run straight through your however many questions you got over there.
I've got a few here, and I'll start off with the first one, which is the first one that I actually got, is how much would you be willing to pay Garrett Cole in free agency?
Whatever it takes, plus $20 million. I think you have to. I think that we're in a situation right now in Philadelphia where people understand that we know that we have to create a winning baseball team, and we have such a bad hole at the starting pitching position that agents are smart. They know they're going to force our hands, and to me, you got to overpay. Just do what you got to do. Get him in Phillies pinstripes.
So how many trips to Morton's Steakhouse would you treat him to?
He's
playing off the promises you made to Bryce.
I'm actually going to Morton's tomorrow night. So Garrett, if you want to join me and the lady, you can celebrate her birthday with us. How many trips to Morton's?
What do you say, like 14 for Bryce or something like that?
It was a lot for Bryce, so I'm gonna say 3.5 trips to Morton's. 3.5.
3.5.
So we're gonna go for appetizers one night, and I'm gonna realize my money ran out. So 3.5 trips to Morton's plus whatever the contract is for the Philadelphia Phillies.
Okay, that's fair.
You just roll straight through yours, and we'll go to mine.
All right. So the second question I got is, if Gabe Kapler is fired after the season, who's on your mind as a potential replacement for him next year? Who's at the top of your list?
I would say if there is any way that Joe Maddon does not return in Chicago, that's the guy for me. He is a proven guy to make this new age baseball and analytical things in baseball work. It's a direction that obviously the franchise is stressing majorly, the organization is stressing majorly. It's to be kind of compliant with the new way of baseball. And Maddon has a long history of that, and he's always been in this rocky place in Chicago. So I think if there is any way that he is not a Cub, the manager of the Cubs next year, that's the guy.
Okay. Third question is, well, the Phillies, if they decide to bring back Corey Dickerson, and obviously they have McCutchen coming back, they're going to have a crowded outfield next season, which at some point may force their hand to make a decision between Adam Hazley and Mickey Moniak. Who are you going with there?
I think this has long been the thought that I don't think that either one of them play, the bulk of their prime years in Philadelphia. Or not both of them, I should say. One or the other will. And that goes whether Corey Dickerson comes back or not. At a certain point, one of these guys are going to be moved, and I personally believe that is going to be Hazley. I do still think that the Phillies view long-term Mickey Moniak as a center fielder, and Hazley certainly more as a corner guy. And if Hazley is a corner outfielder, his offensive stat projection kind of gives him more that fourth outfielder look or platoon outfielder look. So I could see him getting moved at some point in a deal. If we are able to ink Corey Dickerson, and it's nerve-wracking because he's got injury histories, and then obviously Andrew McCutchen, 33 years old next year, coming off of an ACL is a concern. I don't have the concern that everyone else has about that, by the way. But the way the medical things are right now, like we just saw Brandon Brooks come back from a freaking torn Achilles 9 months ago and play 45, 50 snaps in the first regular season game of the year. Like, at a certain point, the way that the medical advances have come, like, I'm not overly concerned that the 33-year-old, supremely athletic and very healthy human in Andrew McCutchen is. So I'm cool with the two of them on this team, and I'd move Hazley as much as I love him. But if that was a necessary piece in the deal, that's the guy. And for me, I'd be betting more so on Mickey Moniak continuing the rise that he's had.
Okay. All right, so our fourth question here, we actually touched on this earlier. We both agreed that Chris Young should be fired. Mm-hmm. Does the team pull the trigger in the offseason? Do they actually go ahead and fire him?
I think so. Yeah, I think that there was a lot of intrigue about him. There was a lot of interest from other clubs. Obviously, the Braves reached out to ask if they could interview him. It seems at this point that was just a really smart thing to get us to protect him and let go of Kranitz. But I would say that this experiment is done. I think that if Gabe's here next year, that is going to be one of the first things that upper management tells Gabe you have to do is you have to find a better pitching coach because this ain't it.
Yeah. No, I think everybody agrees on that. All right, so our fifth question is, what is Spencer Howard's ceiling as a major league starter?
Ace on a really bad team, a really good number two on a decent team. That could change. Pitchers are different. There's a very real possibility he doesn't hit his stride for another 3 or 4 years, and we could be reevaluating that. Again, we heard from Pete Mackanin that we thought Aaron Nola was going to be a really good number 3 starter, and he's a legitimate ace as long as he doesn't pitch every 5th day, apparently. But I would say for the Phillies, immediate future, if Garrett Cole is not a Philly, he immediately becomes our number 2. If Garrett Cole is a Philly, he is our number 3, and that's pretty much where I see him.
Okay, our sixth question actually comes from the same person. It's much along the same lines as the last question. What's Alec Boehm's ceiling as a major league hitter?
I have come full circle on my Alec Boehm thoughts. So when we originally drafted him, I was so pissed off, and I didn't see what the Phillies saw, and no one else saw what the Phillies saw either. So. And that makes you nervous because the Phillies are a notoriously dumb organization. But a
terrible scouting department, by the way.
Not great. But I have fully come around on Alec Boehm here, and I think that regardless of where he ends up playing as a defensive player, left field, third base, first base, the eventual NLDH that may come, which is gonna suck. You shouldn't like the DH. It's ridiculous.
I'm gonna miss seeing pitchers hit home runs.
I like the strategy in these games, but he's going to be legit. He is going to be I want to say a top 5 offensive producing third baseman. By the end of his second year. So we'll see, but he's a damn good player.
And our final question here is: what's the best food choice at Citizens Bank Park?
Oh, best food choice. Used to be the Schmitter.
Yeah, certainly agreed there, so it's disappointed they got rid of that.
Yeah. I would say if you can find any of the carts that have the more like Italian-styled sausage sandwiches. That's damn good. Like you get, it's like a foot long like sausage. Like that's enough to like not eat the rest of the day, and it is delicious. So I'm gonna say find one of those carts.
Those are pretty solid. Also, they have at Bull's Barbecue, they have some real good kielbasa there as well.
Everything from Bull's Barbecue is also delicious.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
All right, so that's the end of the 7 questions that I have.
All right. I have 5, similar amount. All right, we're going to scroll through them here. All right. Obviously, you can't blame just one thing on the Philadelphia Phillies for their 2019 season, but if you had to blame one thing for the majority of it, what are you, Rob, blaming?
I'm blaming Matt Klentak for not giving us a starting pitching staff and not really supplementing the bullpen. He did go out and he brought in Robinson. He was assuming that Robinson would stay healthy, but he didn't. But he didn't give us enough starting pitching. In his 2 years, he's given us, Jake Arrieta, who gave us an okay season last year and was average mediocre before he got hurt this year. So, yeah, Mac, the biggest issue for the Phillies has been that starting pitching.
Yeah.
Beyond Aaron Nola, they've been pretty much dog shit.
Yeah.
So, and Klentak's done nothing about it. He's brought in, guys that are patch-up guys. Drew Smiley's, Jason Vargas's of the world. Jason Vargas was pretty awful last night. Smiley pitched well his last time out. He's kind of been hit or miss, but he hasn't done enough to give us a good pitching staff.
Yeah, I agree in a lot of that. Nick Pivetta for me is the biggest culprit, personally. So that was question 1. Question 2 we got coming in here is how many? This is interesting actually. So how many games do you think Odubel Herrera plays for the Philadelphia Phillies next year?
0.
Yeah, you think that they're going to find a way to just be done with him?
They're going to be done with him. He's never going to be a Philly again. Never going to play for us again.
I agree. So what? Kind of going off that first question here, one of these at least pitchers are going to have to be part of the rotation next year, preferably and assumedly in the number 4 or 5 role. Which do you have the most faith in? Vince Velasquez, Jared Eichhoff, Zach Eflin, or Nick Pivetta?
Man, that's tough.
Right.
I think that Eflin, despite the fact that he really struggled after a nice start to the season, I think he's inevitably going to be the guy that they go with, just because out of those guys, he's had the most success out of all of them. He's actually pitching tonight, and he's going up against the Braves, who have shelled him every single time that he's pitched against them this year, so I'm not too hopeful about tonight. But he's had the most success out of those guys, and he's been the most consistent, so I think he ends up getting that spot.
I think ideally that is the spot for Eflin. I just don't think he can handle the bullpen, so I would agree. I would think that that's probably your safest bet of the 4 of them. Personally, I think it's going to end up being Vince Velasquez, but that's just because I don't trust the Phillies for anything.
The Phillies have a Velasquez boner.
They truly do. All right, so first of all, I did not realize that they had used 30 bullpen arms this year until Johnny Heller tweeted that out. Technically, it's not 30 bullpen arms because I think 4 or 5 of them are position players, but still, when you look at how many people pitched in the bullpen this year. So the question came in and said, we've used a ton of bullpen arms. Like I said, it ended up being 30 when I looked it up. Can you name 3 to 5 that you would willingly enter next season with and what their roles would be? So is there anyone on this mess right now that you would want back on the 2020?
Well, Hector Neris, as much as a roller coaster ride as his 9th innings have been this year, he's been good. Yeah. I think that he's got to be back.
What role would you want him in?
Ideally as a setup man, but if he has to be the closer again, I'd be content with that. He's done a good job with it this season. Like I said, some roller coaster rides, some close calls, and a couple blown games here and there that shouldn't have happened, but by and large, he's done a good job in the closer role this year. So he's one guy who I would bring back. Let's see, I would bring back, I think Mike Mortons pitched pretty well for us since we brought him over. I like him. He's a veteran arm. He's done a fairly decent job. Other than that, I mean, really nobody's stood out for me. It's been tough. We were going to count on David Robinson before he got hurt. Robertson, I should say. He got hurt. Sir Anthony, he got hurt. A lot of the guys who I would count on next season, quite frankly, haven't pitched a whole lot this year.
Yeah, totally agreed. It's been a hell of a time watching this bullpen, piece together game by game. Guys are in different roles constantly. We have so many hurt arms that we don't know how they're going to come back. So it's tough. It's a good question. It's a tough question to answer. I think the answer would change day by day. This was a Chris Young question, so we can skip that one. This is actually interesting. I don't know why they asked me this in particular, so I'm glad that I'm asking you it. Would you prefer the MLB address the juice baseballs or just continue to have massive offensive power output to continue their efforts in keeping a very boring game exciting?
Chicks dig the long ball, man. Keep them coming. I love the long ball. I go to a baseball game. I want to see at least 3 or 4 home runs sail over the outfield wall. I'm not a big fan of small ball. I like it when it works for the Phillies, but just as a baseball fan in general, I want to see the home runs being hit. So if you really think about it, the run scoring in general is not up that much this season. It's just the home run totals. And if you even look at the home run totals, the known power hitters aren't hitting a whole lot more than they normally do. It's the fringe guys, the guys who you would normally count on to hit 10 homers are now hitting 20 homers. The guys who you count on to hit 15 are now hitting 25. So it's really those fringe power hitters who are hitting more home runs. Yeah. So really, most of the offensive statistics, are not jumping that much. It's just the home run ball.
All right. You can buy one Phillies jersey of the 40-man roster, so of a player that is currently on the 40-man, but it cannot be anyone obvious, so it can't be a Bryce Harper, Rhys Hoskins, or anything like that. Who's the player on this 40-man that you would go with?
Scotty Jetpacks.
That's an obvious one.
You think that's an obvious one?
Of course it's an obvious one. He's got some of the best hair in baseball. He's a damn superstar, LJ.
Oh, God.
Inside the park home run last night, awkwardly. Very strange inside the park, but I loved every second of it.
Okay, well, if you consider him to be an obvious one, then I think given the contract situation, the fact that he might not be back next year, I'm going Corey Dickerson.
All right, I respect the Corey Dickerson choice. He should be back next year, but I don't know that he will. I would go with a Yaxel Rios jersey.
Jesus, that's the most...
I'm totally kidding. I hate Yaxel Rios. No, I laughed when the question came in because it literally says, what's the jersey that you would go, what the hell, why did you buy that for? What jersey would you go with to fit that statement? I was like, that's actually brilliant because I didn't know. But I feel like we should just buy Tyler and Andrew Knapp jersey.
Yeah. He would, that's his favorite player in baseball. So.
Yeah, man.
Hey, if anybody's looking for an Adubel jersey, by the way, I still get rid of mine.
All right.
I was going to burn it, but the team never released them, so.
Yeah, well, you could still do it. It doesn't matter. All right, so obviously the Wells Fargo Center is getting has now their huge new scoreboard. They've made some updates to the paint on the ice, things of the sort. So is there any type of renovation that you would like to see at Citizens Bank Park?
Give me a retractable roof.
Why?
Wasn't there a stretch in, I think it was June or July, where, I don't know, the Phillies had 7 or 8 rain delays over the course of about 2 weeks?
Yeah, when we were playing Washington and Atlanta.
Something like that, yeah. Nobody wants to sit through a rain delay. You buy tickets to a game, you don't want to get halfway down to the ballpark and then find out, the game's been postponed because there's a threat of a shower that night. No. You want them to play the game. So you want to be able to go down to the ballpark. You want to be able to sit in a nice climate, no rain, and watch the baseball game that you were planning on watching.
Not me, man. I don't want that because you know what's inevitably going to happen? Philadelphia's a hard town to play in, man. And if you got to go out there and not play in the Northeast elements, that's part of why it's hard to play here in October.
I think
it's going to be 8 degrees outside, and they're going to be like, just close the roof. Pump the heat.
Let's think about another thing, though. Aaron Nola is a much better pitcher.
Well, then he better learn.
Well, you want to help your guys out, right?
Not happening, man.
Yeah, let's build that retractable roof and give Aaron Nola his 70 degrees that he needs to pitch in October.
He likes it 95 and humid. I don't even know how he exists.
All right, well, okay, there's another thing. You can build a sauna specifically for Aaron Nola that he can sit in before each of his games.
Why don't you just make the sauna ring the edge of the dirt on the mound? That way it's only him that gets affected, and you just flip that switch and let him go out there looking like he's just dying of an illness. All right. Still technically in the... wait, was that the last one that I have here? That was the last one. All right. So, a CBP reno. All right, I dig that.
By the way, you mentioned notes something about putting a net up around the entirety of the foul territory. And I swear to God, if they do that, I will go down with scissors and I will cut that net down myself.
I've never been in support of the net. I do believe that the netting to the extent that it is currently at is very much so necessary. I think right now it goes to the far end of the dugout, maybe like a little bit further, like into that first section there.
As far as it should go.
Yeah, look, and I get it. I got ripped for it before. I quote tweeted all over the place because I sat there and said, just pay attention to the damn game and you'll be fine.
Yeah, get off your freaking phone.
Yeah, so I mean, just in general. But, like, I get the keeping people safe thing. And where the net currently is where it should be. For most parks. There are parks that are different, I would say, depending on how... Like, for argument's sake, you go to Coliseum in Oakland, right? Like, why, you don't even fucking need nets. You're so far away from the field there. It's absurd. There's so much room. You cannot pop a ball foul that is not caught in play. It's nuts. But then you come up and, like I said, Citizens Bank Park, you're not on top of the field, but you're close.
Yeah.
So I get stuff like that. But yeah, I would... Like I said, I'm not big on the netting there. I just pay attention, and more often than not, you should be fine.
Hey, part of the excitement of going to the baseball game is a chance to catch a foul ball, or a home run ball.
Oh yeah. All right, so we talked about it a little bit. But obviously, we're still technically in this playoff race, just 2 games out of that second wild card spot. And like I said, and like you mentioned, it's the injuries right now to key players and key teams that are in front of us, as well as the fact that we seem to play better baseball teams better than what we would play not so great baseball teams, and our schedule is difficult. If they get in to the playoffs somehow, or get into the postseason, they get into that wild card game against right now what we assume to be Washington, how emotionally invested are you? Are you suddenly all in again? Are you saying, all right, let's beat Washington? And you're basing your whole week on this right now? Or is it just like all right, well, it's good that they got there, but I know that this is as far as they're getting?
It depends. Most likely we would have to go down to Washington and play at their place. And the Phillies, historically, ever since the Nationals became a good baseball team, the Phillies haven't played well down there. If the Phillies were able to jump into that first spot, which is highly unlikely, and the Nationals will be coming up to Philadelphia, then I would be emotionally invested in that game, because I think the Phillies play the Nationals much tougher at home. I think that the Phillies, with the home crowd behind them, would have a much better shot at winning that game. It all depends where it's played, but it's most likely going to be down in D.C. If the Phillies do make it, I don't have faith in them. I'm not emotionally invested in winning that game.
I don't think anyone would blame you. I am a very quick switch to believe all over again. Like, I would not shock me if they come out and they win tonight and look convincing that I'm all in again. I enjoy this team. I enjoy the sport of baseball more than I enjoy anything on the planet. And I want nothing more than them to be playing consistently good baseball and entertaining baseball.
You know what, though? I might be invested a little bit, because it would set up the potential of a dream scenario where Bryce Harper comes up in the top of the 9th inning down there, hits a grand slam to give the Phillies the lead, and then the bottom half he robs what would have been like a game-tying home run out in right field or something like that.
Maybe so.
Just rips the heart out of his former fan base down there.
Yeah, they'd have to move.
It would be the most beautiful thing of all time.
Agreed. All right, so we're going to roll into a few of our intersegment bits to end this. We try to piece these in throughout, but we wanted to talk about most of the serious stuff, kind of up front here, and then end on a little bit of a funnier note to sort. So this is our In Defense of Gabe segment, where we give defensible things that we will defend about baseball in general, our own particular views or philosophies, and then one thing non-baseball related that we will blindly defend to the end of time. So Rob, we'll start with you, and we'll start with your baseball take.
We alluded to it earlier, the juice baseballs. keep the home runs coming. I'll defend that until the end of time.
Yeah. So mine is not totally similar to that, but mine is analytics and the new age of baseball is entertaining. It's just not for dumb people. For me, it's fascinating, and it's like an action chess match. Everything from, I did a presentation in public speaking about all the things that go on in my head stepping into the batter's box before that pitch is thrown, looking at how the defense is aligned, reviewing in my head the first pitch of X amount of at-bats before me, the way that they've pitched me earlier in the game, all these different factors that go in. Every single pitch is a different chess move in baseball, and they have made this game so intelligent, and they've prepared these guys so well that it fascinates me. It isn't as, base runner heavy action packed. There's not, like you mentioned, there's not as many, manufactured runs in today's game as there once was, but it is, any way you look at it, it is still a fascinating product out there, and it's something that if you don't like it, I feel like you're just dumb.
Yeah, really the biggest thing in baseball now is, as a hitter, figuring out where that pitch is going to go and figuring out where you need your swing to be to get that launch angle down and drive it over the fence.
Mm-hmm. All right, so what is your non-baseball related thing that you will defend? Last week you went with pumpkin spice coffee. I'd just like to remind everyone that you, Rob, went for pumpkin spiced coffee.
And I'm still going to defend that until my dying day. But
you have to.
Oh my God, I had the one that I was going to defend, and I lost it. So let's go with yours first, and mine will come back to me.
Sure. So I am going to defend, and I alluded to it earlier on this segment, and I also believe I alluded to it earlier on Backyard Beers and Football. Seinfeld is 100% a better sitcom and overall casting and show than Friends, and it's really not that close. I know people love Friends, but you're wrong. Watch Seinfeld.
I love Friends. I do love Friends.
Watch Seinfeld. Do the right thing, Pumpkin Spice.
Oh my God.
Do the right thing.
Okay, so mine's also related to TV shows, and it's one that we've mentioned numerous times in this podcast, mostly in Backyard Beers and Football, and before that in Kelly Green Hour. The League is forever one of the most underappreciated shows of all time.
Totally agree.
One of the greatest TV shows ever.
Yeah, it's perfect. And it's so relatable. It is the Seinfeld of this era.
We basically based our fantasy football league off of it in some ways.
Yeah, in a lot of ways we did.
Which reminds me, I still need to get that trophy.
Yes, because it needs to be on my mantle as my one and only year of champion. And this year, mercifully, I will lose and I cannot play fantasy football ever again.
You would need to then find an item to put on the trophy for the decoration.
I got it. I know what I'm doing. Just a little caricature of Monkey over there. That's it. All right, so then our last one before we get to a final thought here is a quick game of Would You Rather. However, we're going to make it a little bit different this time. I'm going to go through each of the different types of decisions Rob could make on his way down to a Philadelphia Phillies game.
Let's do it.
So I'm going to ask Rob 8 to 10 questions now and see what his preference on a day out at a Phillies game would be. So, first of all, if you're going to a game, you going to a day game or you going to a night game?
Night game 100% of the time.
Night game 100% of the time. And are you driving or taking the train?
Usually I would take the train, but if it's against a tougher opponent where I feel like there's a potential for extra innings, I would probably think about driving because the late trains don't come back. All
right. Whether you're driving or taking the train, it's you. I assume that you'd be meeting someone down there and you would tailgate. So, are you tailgating early or are you rather going right into the stadium and getting settled?
Oh, I'm tailgating if I can.
Tailgating if you can. Ballpark food selection. What are you going with?
Oh, man, they took the Schmitter away from me, and it's been a tough choice ever since then. This Schmitter was a thing of beauty, but I'm going to go with that grilled kielbasa that I talked about from Bull's Barbecue.
Respectable choice. This is a difficult one. So do you want Cold Month Aaron Nola? We've seen how that goes. Or Cliff Smiley? Yes, I called him Cliff Smiley.
I'm going with Cold Month Aaron Nola just because I think that he's eventually going to figure it out.
All right. I would have went with Cliff Smiley, man. Cliff Smiley, those 3 starts, and his first 3 starts in a Phillies uniform were quite fun. And Aaron Nola Cold Month is not pleasurable. If you had to select one team, National League or American League, does not matter, but one team that you would most like to see them play, who are you selecting?
Just one team in general?
One team
for
in
any
general.
reason whatsoever?
Any reason whatsoever.
I hate the Nationals, so I want to see them play the Nationals because I want to be there to see them beat the Nationals.
I would probably select the Angels just to see Mike Trout.
That's a good point.
Yeah.
That's fair.
That being said, I would lose Stephanie immediately. She is quite the fan of Mike Trout, and I can't even argue it. If she left, I'd be like, yeah, I get it.
That's why she's not coming when we go up to New York next week.
True.
Right?
All right. So blowout win. This is a scenario thing.
Okay.
Blowout win, front run from the get-go, or back and forth, grind it out win, or walk off and come from behind win. What kind of win do you want?
I'm thinking about that Cubs game where Harper hit the walk-off grand slam, the come from behind walk-off win.
All right.
Nothing more fun than, how energized the crowd is when something like that happens.
Yeah, that was pretty insane. I can't tell you how many times I've watched that. It's absurd. All right, and then the final one on that, given the fact that you have just referenced the grand slam walk-off for Harper, and you are the Backyard Beers Drink of the Week specialist, so what is your celebratory drink after a walk-off win?
Man, that's tough. Since most of the baseball season happens during the summer, and Corona Extra is my summer drink, I'm going with that.
Respect it. All right, so that, if you want to go to a baseball game with Rob, that is basically how his day goes when he goes, or his evening goes, I should say, when he goes down to those Philadelphia Phillies games in the summer. You will be getting down early, probably via train, tailgating with Coronas, and celebrating with Coronas.
Well, if I'm tailgating, then I probably need to have my car.
All right, so we're going to get to our final thoughts here. So we're doing this one slightly different. Ordinarily, we have a final thought about anything, but the first year of the 13-year contract for Bryce Harper has gone not the way that he or the Phillies or the fan base has probably imagined it to go.
And yet he's still been the best player on the team.
Well, JT Realmuto's been the best player on the team, but Bryce Harper's been a close second. But if you could shake Bryce Harper's hand and tell him just one thing about this current season and the state of the franchise and the fan base, what are you telling Bryce?
Just keep grinding, man. It's going to come together. We saw it. We saw it come together after his rough start. He's played some really good baseball since then. Just keep grinding, keep doing his thing. It's going to be all right.
Yeah, I don't have any particular type of message that I would dish out to Bryce. I think if I'm meeting him, I think first and foremost, just an appreciation for the human being that he is in the dugout right now. He came over with this cancerous type of attitude, and that was sold to us by the media, that was sold to us by Washington National fans who were upset that he wasn't coming back, and he's a problem, and he's not a leader, and he's been anything but that. He's been incredible in his time here in Philadelphia, and you see it across all four major sports. You see superstars in their game in the best of their era, and they don't get the opportunity to play for a championship in their respected sport. Bryce Harper, after just 1 year here so far, not even a complete year so far, he's at 31 or 32 home runs, 103 RBIs, somewhere in that range. I want more than anything to give that man the opportunity to sit there and play deep October baseball and try to bring that trophy down Broad Street again. He is a guy who very quickly has integrated himself to the city, into that clubhouse, and I respect the hell out of him for it. That is going to be it here for In Kap We Trust. Like we said, we're going to try to keep these a little bit quicker usually over the next couple weeks. If for whatever reason we are playing super, super meaningful baseball in the last 2 or 3 series there to end the season, and we're thinking about getting into that second wild card spot, we will bring you additional content, longer shows, things of that sort, a little bit more energy behind it. But for right now, we're going to stick with these little bit shorter episodes here at In Kap We Trust. But while you are watching all of your baseball and football and anything else that you watch, you're going to order Just Food. Why? Because me and Rob order Just Food all the time. Just Food, 215-794, Food, 215-794-3663. Treat yourself. Take it home. Visit our guy over there, Asian Rob. Have him cater your events. Go and stop in their store locations. Del Val College Market is one of them. Another one in Buckingham Green Shopping Center. They will make whatever food you want. If your palate is super advanced and you can't even pronounce the words of the food that you are eating, I guarantee they have it. If you can pronounce it and you're super, super easy and you want something as basic as a grilled cheese, that's pretty damn good there too. I know, because I just had one, because I'm an adult. Just Food, 215-794, Food, 215-794-3663. Treat yourself. Take it home. This has been In Kap We Trust. Always be sure to visit our website, www.alwaysnextyearpodcast.com. New articles coming out every single week. And then always subscribe to our podcast show. All of our segments come out on the very same place that you are hearing this one. Subscribe, rate and review. Let us know how we're doing. Let us know the things that you want to hear. And always be sure to reach us at our WhatsApp chat now. We talk about it now in Backyard Beers and Football. We'd be happy to talk about and reference your texts in messages into us here on In Kap We Trust or any of our segments here. Go to the contact page or contact tab on www.alwaysnextyearpodcast.com. Scroll to the bottom. WhatsApp is right down there. Rob, any thoughts here before we head out?
Hey, the more content that they can give us through the WhatsApp, the better our show is going to be.
100% agree. That's going to be it for In Kap We Trust. He's Rob. I'm Shane. We will see you next week.
Now I'm back to hitching with the wind. But if Mickey Flynn should ever find me, I'll throw me caution all behind me and square off on that son of a bitch again. He cracked open a river too, he beat me Sunday through and through, and such over my unconscious frame. I won me healthy sheriff fights, well lucky son still had me life since Mickey Flynn beat me dumb and lame.